The name on the marquee has got to be Ilia Topuria, who this past weekend at the ViStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville, Florida, beat the brakes off of Josh Emmett in the main event of UFC Fight Night, Topuria versus Emmett. Emmett survived to the scorecards. The scorecards read 50-44, 50-42, and a 49-45. All in favor of the rising superstar from Spain, Ilia Topuria. Mark, start us off. Give us your take and your thoughts of this very, very dominant performance by Mr. Topuria. Cheers.
This performance from Ilia Topuria was so good and was such a beautiful display of skill level that it took Ilia Topuria from being a guy whose best win was Bryce Mitchell to a guy who people are like unanimously saying, yeah, that guy should probably just fight Volk. Like in one performance. I mean, that's about as simply as you can sum this up. But he beat the shit out of Josh Emmett for 25 minutes. I think we all kind of predicted he would beat the shit out of Josh Emmett, at least somewhat. I don't know if any of us saw the bludgeoning that was. But he dominated him. And it's not just that he's fast or that he's got great boxing or big power or that he is so good defensively, but it's the way that he controls space. All of the space between Topuria and his opponent is his thus far. He controls it. He's like a puppet master in there at times. He's got fantastic footwork. He continually cut Josh Emmett off all fight long. He's so good at stepping in to deliver his shots and then getting his head out of range. Or even better, actually, what he was doing all fight long was him doing a little backslide out of range as Emmett threw, only to counter, kind of pivot away and counter. He caught Josh Emmett a million times that way. His hands are always up next to his head. He blocks most punches, and he just frustrates you because he is so sound defensively and such an intelligent boxer that he's going to land at such a higher rate than you are going to land. And Josh Emmett, if we're being honest, was kind of the perfect opponent because he likes to throw his kind of lunging punches, and it really let Topuria show off because he was able to evade these, and he was just a much cleaner boxer. But he was crushing him. It felt like he was hurting him bad in pretty much every round from round 2 onward. And props to Josh Emmett. The guy's an absolute animal. He can absorb crazy damage. After round 4, I would say that thing hit the point where I was truly starting to think about whether his corner should have been stopping him from going back out there. But, you know, he didn't cave. He battled the whole way. And it didn't matter because Ilia Topuria was that damn good and that damn dialed in, and he is officially now a very big deal.
Omar, give us your take on the techniques that Topuria was throwing out there that really made the difference and just completely shutting down and pretty much dominating one of the most dangerous strikers in the 145-pound division.
This is the shit that I watch MMA for. These are the type of performances that for me are just extremely memorable. I couldn't really wait to talk about this fight because Topuria did so many things in that fight that I thought were so exceptional. His guard needs to be talked about, and it needs to be appreciated for how effective it is because his guard was tight. You could almost say it was a very like Muay Thai straight up stance, very square stance. And he did a lot of moving forward in that fight, blocked a lot of punches. And I think the reality was, just like Mark said, this fight with Emmett was really tailor-made for Topuria because Emmett chooses to have a fight style that does not account for proper entry. And so without utilizing a jab of like any fucking kind, this man relies on hooks. And so when that happens, you've basically just eliminated 1 or 2 punches from an actual arsenal, right? Because even the cross, he wasn't throwing completely straight. He was winging things from like back here all the way forward. And Topuria is a matador. I mean, the Spaniard doesn't even seem like it's a proper name for him. He was a matador. And he was cutting angles just like Mark said. He was popping him on the way out, popping him on the way in. I mean, he put the literal beating on him in round 4 to the point where I believe this is the first official 10-7 that we've gotten in the UFC at this point. And the crazy shit is, well, I believe it is. I don't know if there's another 10-7 officially on record, at least not in modern day MMA. I don't know how the hell they did it back in the day, but it was completely warranted. Absolutely warranted. There were 2 sequences towards the end of that round that were near finishes that with other referees very well might have been finishes. So I was completely fine with the 10-7 scoring for that round. And it was one of the greatest performances, man. And it did. I think everybody was kind of on the same page after the end of that fight. We walked away with, I think, 2 big things on our mind. Did Emmett get beat so badly that retirement shouldn't even come into play? Or did we just realize that Emmett's probably never going to reach gold, even if he does continue to fight, right? I think the way his fight style is right now, I think he's never going to be champion, and he probably will never, beat the elite the way that he's approaching these fights right now. He very well could change his fight style and adapt his fight style to set things up a little bit more proper and be able to land things properly. But until that happens, I think we've seen the ceiling of Josh Emmett. And I think we've seen Ilia Topuria take the fucking glass elevator right the hell up out of the ceiling. Because this man genuinely looks like somebody who could give Volk problems at minimum. Minimum. And he's a real issue when it comes to the idea that he could walk away from that fight with a belt and be one of the guys to legitimately have beaten Volkanovski without, I wonder how that, I wonder how people scored the fight. I think if he does beat Volk, I think he beats him decisively. And that's an amazing, amazing prospect.
At this point, I cannot see Volk getting dominated the way that Josh Emmett just did by Topuria. I mean, but
agreed.
The hand speed combined with the power of Topuria is terrifying. Terrifying. But also, to your point, Omar, I love that you said that this is why you watch, man. Took the words right out of my mouth. Like, as a fan, it's these kinds of performances and these kinds of athletes and fighters that make me just tune in to be like, wow. Like, you're watching something pretty special in Topuria, man. Anytime this guy fights now, and this guy's going to be a main event fighter for the rest of his career, pretty much. Or at the very least, we're entering into the prime phase of Topuria's career where, like, he's in main events and he's on marquees from here on out, man. He makes you watch. I mean, he, like, in the same way that, like, a Gaethje, a Poirier, Oliveira, like, you just watch this guy because you know that you're going to see fireworks, and you also know that you're going to see MMA at such a high level that it's just, there's like a beauty to it. It really is. That being said,
For sure.
do you guys agree with the sentiment that off this performance, beating a guy who just fought for an interim belt and beating him so handily, do you see Topuria at this point being next in line for a title shot? Mark, you go first.
It kind of feels like it should be, in all honesty. I know there's some guys above him technically, but, like, Max is fighting Korean Zombie. If Max wins that fight, are you going to make Topuria fight Max and run the risk of Max winning, and then what do? Like, no, why would you go that route? Then the other one, I guess, is Ortega, who's returning, but, like, are you going to do a title eliminator right away there? It kind of, and not to mention Volk and Yair is happening pretty soon. So it kind of just feels like at this point, Topuria makes the most sense as just, you know what? Let's run this Volk and Yair fight. Obviously, if Yair wins, different story. Volk's going to get his rematch. But and then Topuria would maybe have to fight an Ortega or someone. But if Volk wins that fight, it kind of just feels like, you know what? Here we go. Volk and Topuria, let's book it.
Yeah, man. Omar, any other? You have any differing thoughts?
I mean, the reality is that's kind of where the division's at. There's not really much movement and much differentiating you can get at this point. Topuria has put himself now in the top 5. There's not much room to go up further than what's already on the books. So the reality is we got to wait and see what happens. And like Mark said, if Volk wins, which, spoilers, I expect him to win this fight against Rodriguez. As much as I love Yair, I just don't. I think stylistically this is a terrible goddamn matchup. But apart from that, if Volk wins, we're kind of almost at the point now where Izzy is in the middleweight division, right? Where we're kind of recycling guys because we've run through the top of the division. And the worst part about featherweight is that the top of the division fucking has stayed the top of the division. Those dudes don't go away, and they just lose to Volk. So for parity and just to get a guy that genuinely looks like he deserves a title shot, I would also give it to Topuria as well.
Man, oh man. And maybe capitalizing off of the dominance of this win. Almost kind of wish that he found the finish eventually, just to really put that much more of an exclamation point on this win. But man, for a decision win, this was pretty much as dominant as it gets for Topuria. That being said, let's quickly talk about the loser in this contest, Josh Emmett. I think he's in his late 30s. I want to say he's like 36 or 38 or somewhere around there. Omar, let me start with you this time. Looking at the landscape of the featherweight division right now, what do you think is next for Josh Emmett?
38.
Honestly, man, Josh Emmett better not fight for the rest of 2023. I think that's it for him for right now. That man took an ungodly amount of damage. For being honest, the kid should probably stay out for an entire year to be on the safe side. He took one of the worst beatings we've seen in recent memory. And to be honest, the last one I think we've seen like that was Korean Zombie versus Volkanovski. So I'm not thrilled about the idea of him fighting too soon. And as a result, I don't want to give him a pick because the landscape is bound to change by the time I think he's ready to come back. So I will say Josh Emmett by vacation.
Josh. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, he took some damage against Yair, too, in the prior fight. So I don't disagree with that take. I'm on a similar vein. If we are going to match him up, my concern is let's protect his health a little bit after those two beatings. So I would say maybe give him a wrestler who's trying to come up, someone like a Movsar Evloev or even a Bryce Mitchell, which is probably even less risk of head damage. So yeah, I would say maybe go that route if he is going to take another fight here.
Okay. All right. Well, in the interest of time, let's move on. Unless there's anything else you guys want to say about either of these two fantastic combatants.
I do want to point out that Josh Emmett has been suspended indefinitely until he's cleared by a doctor from all the broken things in his face.
The least shocking development of the day.
Dude, poor Josh Emmett, man. Towards the end of this fight, I was like, God, my man took a beating.
Bro, I think it was the end of the second round, he gave this look that I think he knew he was fucked. Like, he knew it.
Yeah, he was just outmatched.
And that was the end of the second round.
Okay, let's move on. In the co-main event of this UFC Fight Night, going down once again at the Vistar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville, Florida, Maycee Barber defeated Amanda Ribas by TKO in the second round. Omar, start us off. Give us your impressions of this performance and this finish that Maycee Barber finds over the very talented Amanda Ribas. What's your take?
Amanda Ribas went in there talking her shit. There was definitely some attitude in that fight. She went in there and they were scrapping from the bell. A lot of damage in the first round, I think, on both sides. Ribas definitely left that first round with a little bit of a nosebleed. And man, the striking from Maycee Barber looks a little on point, a little sharper than I think we've seen. And I think she's getting a little bit more comfortable in that arena. She's I think when you look at a lot of her past fights, you've seen her resort to the wrestling when she's not comfortable with the striking, which can tend to be more often than not. But I think in this fight, she had a real comfort there, and she pulled off the kick that we've all glorified for the last year, basically, which is the right hand into the right head kick, and she absolutely, or was it the left head kick? I think it was the left head kick. Either way, she bit, or Amanda Ribas bit on that and went right into that head kick. And it was the beginning of the end. And credit to Ribas because she has a chin, man. Most people, I think, would have just dropped right to the floor. But she ate it, tried to keep moving, tried to stay away. But she couldn't stop the blitz that was Maycee Barber at that point. So beautiful performance, honestly, from both women. I thought they both put on a great performance. But Maycee Barber goes home with the victory, and good for her, man. It was a great win.
Mark, Maycee Barber finds the Leon Edwards head kick. It looked like a sort of a feint with a right straight. Lands the high head kick. What was your take? How impressed were you with this performance?
Really impressed. This was huge for Maycee. The best we've seen from her, absolutely. And this thing was a car crash. I mean, it was entertainment from start to finish. You could not look away. I loved the way that Ribas looked for the first couple minutes of that fight. She came out pushing forward. She was aggressive. She was landing. She initiated the clinch and had Maycee against the cage. But then there was a moment like 3 minutes in that I feel like kind of ended up being a sign of things to come because Ribas had been winning the fight. And then there was that right elbow in close that Maycee landed with her back on the cage. And right away it was like, oh, wow, that power on that elbow was bigger than anything that we saw coming the other way from Ribas. And I feel like it started to swing right there. Like Ribas got really opened up. I mean, she's relentless, and she still actually ends up getting that headlock takedown. And even then I was like, all right, like we're going to be okay. Obviously, I've said before, I'm a fan of Ribas. But then 5 seconds later, Maycee's on her feet again. And a few seconds after that, knee bar attempt for Ribas. She's still the one kind of initiating everything, and then she pays for it. She looked for the knee bar for way too long, and Maycee just put a beating on her for the last, whatever that was, 30 seconds. Maybe it was even more than that, and that changed the fight because by the end of round one, Ribas had ended up sustaining way more damage than Maycee did. And again, I feel like I keep crediting Ribas, but she did come out and tried to get it all back in round two, but she was just content to be in a firefight. She had already taken damage, and it started to swing. You know, she did bust up Maycee's nose, too. She got her back, and she made her work. But Maycee was just too dialed in. I don't know if it was the damage or if it just was that Maycee was the better fighter. But as the round progressed, it really became evident that Maycee was the faster boxer. And that speed combined with the power was just a recipe that Ribas couldn't overcome as she was kind of losing her oomph a little bit, getting a little more tired, and too many clean shots, and eventually that chin of hers finally caved. She's got a great chin, but it was just too much, and a big finish for Maycee Barber. Blood pouring down her face, celebrating. Big moment for her.
Yeah, man. Like I said, she found the Leon Edwards head kick, man. A really nice technique, feinting with that straight and sneaking in that high head kick. Beautiful technique, man. Love to see that. Mark, staying with you, what do you think is next for Maycee Barber? This is undoubtedly the biggest win of her career thus far at flyweight. Who's next for her?
I'm going to say Caitlin Chukagian. I know there are girls who maybe more people are suggesting, like a Lauren Murphy or a Jennifer Maia, who are a little bit below a Caitlin Chukagian, but I think Maycee deserves a big fight after that win. I mean, it's 5 W's in a row. She finished Amanda Ribas, who I really do value. I think she deserves a big one. I'm going Caitlin Chukagian.
Omar, any other bright ideas?
Honestly, man, I'm kind of in the same boat, and I think a lot of people have been talking about that as the next fight for her as well. Oh, I was like, who the hell? So did we all know Caitlin Chukagian got married? She is no longer Caitlin Chukagian?
No way.
I just saw this, and I debated using the name, and I was like, nah.
What's the name?
So I'm noticing because I'm looking at the rankings. I'm like, where the fuck is Chukagian? Because I don't even look for Jessica. I'm looking for Chukagian, and I did not find it. It is now Caitlin Sermonara.
Yep.
Sermonara.
I think that's it. Sermonara. Well, congratulations to the Sermonamas. Very nice. But yeah, I will go down that route. I think that's really the best course of action. And honestly, man, as frustrating as Caitlin's style can be, I think Maycee Barber might just have the tools to get around a lot of that nonsense and potentially get a win here. So it's a good fight for her.
How do you say that last name?
Sermonara? Sermonara.
Yeah,
Sermonara.
Like Sermonara.
Sermonara.
Is it already
Sermonara.
changed on the UFC website?
Correct.
Yeah, that's how
Chukagian
we
is
saw
dead.
it on the rankings. Yeah.
Sermonara. Is that like Japanese? What is that?
Oh, dog, I have no idea, man.
I would guess it's Italian. Would you not? Sermonara.
I don't. Oh,
I don't know.
maybe
Can you
is.
say it in Italian? Sermonara.
Sermonara.
No.
But you can also say it in Japanese.
Yeah.
Sermonara.
I guess you could. I'll bet.
Oh, it's with the. Oh, I'm seeing it now though. It's with the C. It's totally Italian. Totally.
It is Greek.
Correct.
It is.
Oh,
it can be
sure.
Greek or Italian Southern.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Okay, let's move on. Here we go. Opening up the main card of UFC Fight Night. In the middleweight division, a fight of consequence. Brendan All-In Allen defeats Bruno Silva by submission via rear naked choke. The official time coming at 4 minutes and 39 seconds of the very first round. Mark, start us off here. It's fitting for you to start us off, given that Brendan Allen is your boy. What's your take?
Dude, Brendan Allen is going to find that neck, man. He is coming for it. And props to him because he went through the fire here. He withstood a couple Bruno Silva blitzes, which we've seen get other guys out of there. He bit down. He threw back and stood his ground, and it helped him kind of get some respect at first. And then it actually let him hurt Silva later because Silva was pretty open, and Allen was firing back in those exchanges, and he hurt Silva. But, you know, Silva wants to be the bully in there, and Allen did a great job to not allow that and not allow the momentum to swing that way. Obviously, then he lands a couple huge rights to drop him, stays super calm on top, trying to pick some spots, and then just says, you know what, I can transition to the back. When it looked like there was no transition to the back, kind of just grabbed a leg, flipped Silva over, boom, he's on his back. I mean, it was a lot easier than it should have been. And then the choke was right there. So the dude is good, man, and I don't want to get ahead of myself because we're certainly not at the point of any title shot yet. He's got to prove he can beat some more guys, but I did like what he said in the post-fight about being an interesting challenge for Izzy because he said, you know, the fact is that, yeah, maybe I'm not great at something, but I'm good at everything. And it's true. And it makes him an interesting contender in this division.
Totally. Omar, what's your take on the performance of Brendan Allen getting it done by rear naked choke over the very talented Bruno Silva?
I thought it was a beautiful performance. I think we all take submission from Allen. I think I took round 2. I don't even know if I took round 1, but I think we all had some confidence in the finish there.
The decision, actually.
Did you really?
Yeah,
I thought we all had some. Damn, I thought we all had some confidence there in that finish because he's a finisher, man. He's a beast. And I think the real problem with Silva is exactly what Mark said: is the man leaves himself open, right? He's got a lot of the same problems that a lot of these brawlers have. They're like saloon doors, right? Like if you stand in front of a saloon door when it's fucking going open and closed, you get the shit slapped out of you. But like the moment that thing is not swinging open, it's wide open, and it's not great. It's not a great way to fight, especially the higher up you get. These guys need to start worrying about defense. And honestly, man, if you need to know what to do, Topuria just put on a goddamn masterclass for free. Check it out on ESPN Plus. Literally, almost every professional fighter at this point could go watch that fight and learn something from that fight. That was an amazing performance, especially when it comes to the defense and being able to to have offense with solid defense. And he wasn't perfect. I mean, he had some moments in there where it was a little shaky, and I'm not going to go back into Topuria. I realized I was about to do that. But my point is Allen was able to capitalize on a lot of the opportunities that Bruno Silva left open. And I think he can do that in a lot of these fights going forward. I'm not ready to buy him beating Izzy because I think he is good everywhere. But I think Izzy is great at the stand-up, but I think he's also good everywhere else. And so if we're lining up skill for skill and we're very equal in a lot of points, but we're going to differ highly in the striking, I still will pick Izzy in that fight.
I mean, of course. I mean, I can't imagine what the odds would be right now for Izzy versus Brendan Allen, but I have to imagine that Izzy would be a significant favorite in that fight.
Yeah, I think it would probably be mine as saying he would beat Izzy. I'm certainly not saying that. I'm just saying he presents an intriguing challenge that's kind of different than others we've seen Izzy face to this point.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the ground game. You know, Brendan Allen's ground game, I don't know if it's getting as much respect as it should, because it's a real goddamn problem.
It should.
And it might start on the feet. It might be, it might be like clubbing subs and stuff like that. But his ability to finish on the ground is a problem. And if you're matched up with him, you have to worry about it. So I agree. I agree that the matchup there is a little different, and the skill set is a little bit different as well. So it would be intriguing. But I still think Izzy comes back with that gold, baby.
Well, Brendan Allen now has won 5 in a row under the UFC banner. Omar, looking at the landscape of the middleweight division, who do you see being a worthy next opponent for Mr. Brendan Allen, who really is coming into his own?
Well, I think one of the perfect fights that you could make for him is I guess probably the loser of Sean Strickland and what the hell is going on to this weekend here? Abu Magomedov. I think that would be something. I guess it's really more Strickland that I'm trying to get him towards, if we're being honest. I don't know if I would feel the same way about Magomedov getting matched up with Brendan Allen.
If Magomedov gets sent back by Strickland, Allen shouldn't be fighting him.
Oh, well, yes. But I wouldn't mind a Sean Strickland fight against Brendan Allen.
Mark, what about you? 4?
That's fair enough.
Of his last 5 wins by rear naked choke. Who's his next opponent if you are the UFC matchmaker?
I don't mind them going right back to the Jack Hermanson booking. I don't know how long Jack is out for. If not him, maybe a Roman Delites. Could even be Vettori coming off the loss. It's really that section of middleweight is kind of open. They got options for what they can do with Brendan Allen, and Strickland's in that mix too. There's a lot. Kind of depends on which way they want to go with who's fighting who here.
Man, Vettori is another one I think needs to get on a beach and be on a vacation for quite some time. He's another one who took an ungodly amount of damage.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah. All right, let's move on. In the interest of time, congrats to Brendan Allen. A fight very close that was the featured bout of the prelims of this UFC fight night. Neil Magny takes the W over Phil Rowe by split decision. The scorecards read 29-28 and 29-28 for Neil Magny, and Phil Rowe getting his own 29-28. Mark, start us off for this one. Who did you see winning this fight first off, and what was your impressions of the performances of both of these men?
I mean, through 10 minutes, we basically had a draw. Like, that's about as drawy as a fight can be. No man did anything significant, really. They more or less took turns doing the same exact things to each other. Like, it was 10 minutes where those 10 minutes ended, and you could have been like, well, we're at exactly the same place we were when this bell rang. So you want to call it 1-1 at that point? Totally fine with me. I feel like it should have come down to round 3. And it's not like round 3 was some firefight either. This fight as a whole was definitely a bit disappointing. There was a good amount of nothingness happening in round 3 as well. Not to not appreciate the technique, but again, it wasn't exactly a firefight. But I did feel like Neil Magny slightly edged the round, and therefore the fight. So him getting it on the cards did feel right to me. And, he got it done. He fought the ugly version of a Neil Magny fight. All the usual clinch work, just couldn't really press his advantages in the ways that you usually see. But I can't help but feel like Phil Rowe blew this fight. Like, it felt like to me that Phil Rowe's advantages were more so at range. He was cleaner there. He's the one who's more of a KO threat. And instead, he fought the whole fight in the clinch, like much of which he initiated. So I don't know if that was the game plan or if he deviated from the game plan or what, but whatever it was an odd choice to me. I felt like he took away what his potential advantage over Neil Magny could have been. And again, it was still super close, but I kind of feel like he gave Magny an avenue to grind that out the way Magny can do.
Omar, bringing you in on this one. First of all, who did you have winning this fight? Do you think Neil Magny was the rightful winner? And give us your impressions overall of the techniques that these two men threw at each other.
You may be surprised to know I have no idea who won this fucking fight. None. That fight was probably one of the most confusing fights I've seen in quite some time.
Especially because you couldn't tell who was who.
No, you couldn't. In fact, I was going to say this was like no shit. This was basically like if you and your friends were playing like a fighting video game and you both picked the same person and like they had different color shorts on. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen because not only did they like look like each other, same hairstyle and everything, they also fought exactly the same way for the most part. Yes. So I'm not really sure how anybody was supposed to score that fight or properly score that fight or come away from that fight figuring out who was the winner of that fight. I also think we said this last week, though, right? I think we said this was going to be a mirror match. This was going to be basically Neil Magny versus Neil Magny or Phil Rowe versus Phil Rowe. It was going to be the same exact fight or the same exact fighter against each other. So I'm not surprised at the likeness of the fight, how that went. I was a little surprised at the clinch heavy work that went into it on both sides. But Neil Magny's that dude. You gotta make him really lose if you're gonna make him lose. So glad I got the pick. Not the most exciting fight, but yeah, very confusing.
Staying with you, Omar. Let's go with the winner first, Neil Magny. Who do you see being next at this point for in the journey of the up and down journey at welterweight for Neil Magny?
I got one if you got a look.
I don't really think if you be clicking. I don't really think Neil Magny really should be moving that much from that performance, right? I think Phil Rowe had a lot more to gain in that fight than Neil Magny did, and I think Neil Magny had more to losing that fight than Phil Rowe did. So I think considering the circumstances, especially it wasn't a performance that was shocking, life-changing, or anything like that. We're not going to add anything there to the goddamn highlight reel, so I'm not really sure he deserves anything more. I would probably say, I know Ian Gary just got booked against Jeff Neal, right?
Correct. Yep.
Maybe the loser of that fight potentially makes sense. I can't remember if Jeff Neal and Neil Magny have fought. I feel like they have at one point, at this point, but might be a good time at that point to run that one back then. Can't think of anything else other than a newcomer that Neil Magny should be fighting.
Mark, any
I don't
names?
think they have. I'm looking right now because now you got me curious. Oh, they have. Yeah.
Figured.
Jeff Neal lost to Neil Magny. Why can't I remember that fight? Yeah, similar feeling to Omar. I get it. He won. I don't think that win should necessarily be like, all right, now Neil Magny's got to fight a top 10 guy. I kind of think that he should almost kind of have to fight another guy who's trying to crack into the rankings. I don't think his standing really moved there. So I'll throw out two options. One of them I'll say Randy Brown, who also won on this card that we're going to get to actually I think in the very next fight.
That's a good one.
The other would be the winner of this weekend's fight coming up between Kevin Lee and Renat Fakhretdinov.
Man, the highs and lows of this game. He just fought Gilbert Burns in a super high-profile fight. And now he's going to, if you had your druthers, he'd be fighting an unranked guy. It's crazy.
I mean, he just fought Phil Rowe, who was unranked.
It's true. Yeah, man.
And he barely got past
Mike, that's what Neil Magny does, kid. He fights the unranked and reminds them why they are unranked. Let's go, Neil Magny.
And if he had finished Phil Rowe, then we'd be like, all right, he should fight whatever top 10, you know what I mean? But he didn't.
Yeah.
So.
Got to be frustrating to be Neil Magny. Man, he's just always like right there.
Why?
Okay, let's move on. Here we go. In the welterweight division, Randy Brown gets the unanimous decision victory over Wellington Turman. The scorecards read 29-28 across the board. Omar, start us off for this one. Give us your take of the performance by Randy Brown.
I thought Randy Brown looked good in the first 2 rounds. He was doing a lot of changing of the levels. He was hitting low, hitting high right away, putting a lot of nice combinations together. And I was pretty impressed with the way he was comfortable in there striking against somebody like Wellington Turman, who can definitely put his lights out very quickly. But obviously, Randy Brown will generally have the range. He'll have the length and the height advantage. So it was good to see him in the first 2 rounds really take advantage of that and do work. That 3rd round had me stressed because Randy Brown ate some nasty ass elbows in that fight that fucked his face up. The left side of his face by the time that fight was done was swollen to shit. I think it's probably the most damage, the most visible damage we've seen Randy Brown take. I think at this point in his career, I think probably the most destructive thing that's happened to him was the Nico Price finish, but that was, a 1 in a million kind of deal with the way that went down. So I thought it was a good win for Randy Brown. The 3rd round was definitely the most stressful, but overall I thought Randy Brown did a great job controlling the distance and landing some really clean, straight shots against Turman. So good win for Randy Brown.
Mark?
I'll tell you what, man. Wellington Turman was a trickier opponent for Randy Brown than I imagined he would be. He was ripping up Randy's leg. As Omar said, he won round 3 with some aggressive clinch work. He was landing big. He bloodied Randy Brown up. But also, as Omar said, I do think Randy Brown did enough, typical Randy Brown things in the first 10 minutes to take each of those rounds. They were very much the way he likes to fight. I think he was able to edge both rounds, control the striking, dictate it for the most part. Yes, he ate some leg kicks, but he stuffed takedowns. He fought behind the length. I thought he landed more, and he definitely mixed in some nice clean shots and did enough there. So it certainly was not the most incredible Randy Brown performance that we've ever seen, and didn't end super well, but he did what he set out to do, and that was to get the win.
Let's go with just the winner here, Randy Brown, and then we'll move on in the interest of time.
We've been
because we
doing
have
just
plenty.
the winner every fight. Where have you been?
Oh, really? We didn't do Phil Rowe last time?
We haven't done a single loser other than Josh.
Really?
Emmett.
Oh,
Yeah, you
okay.
just keep going to the next one.
True. Yeah.
My bad. So in the interest of time, sticking with just the winner here, Mark, give me the next opponent potentially for Randy Brown.
I just gave it to you. I would like to see Neil Magny. If it's not going to be Neil, I'll give you one backup option, which is one I actually mentioned a few weeks back, which is Daniel Rodriguez.
Ooh. That would be a fun fight. Omar, any other names?
Yep. That is the one. That is the one I'm going to go with. It is going to be the Daniel Rodriguez. I think that's just such a good goddamn fight. Stylistically, it's very interesting, right? Randy Brown always brings that height and that length. And Daniel Rodriguez, I mean, after his last performance, man, after, losing to Ian Gary, I think at this point is probably going to be something that he's going to hold he's going to have in common with a lot of people in that division very shortly, but it wasn't a great performance. So I think he does need to bring that fire in his next fight, and I think Randy Brown's the type of person that can bring that out of him.
Okay, moving on. In the women's strawweight division, Tabatha Ricci, the baby shark, gets it done over Gillian Robertson by unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, and a 30-27 on the scorecards. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your impressions of the baby shark getting this win.
Yeah, I think the volume was really the main factor in this fight that really made things swing the way that they swung. Tabatha Ricci was just going forward, was just putting more combinations together, was just landing just a little bit more. I don't really think there was, for me at least, it didn't seem like power was that much of an issue, right? I don't think at any point Gillian Robertson was going to get knocked out or anything like that, but she was getting touched a lot. I mean, and honestly, I think it got worse as the rounds went on. And you can hear Eve Edwards in the corner. I think it was Eve Edwards, right? Or was it
Dean Thomas?
Dean Thomas. So you can hear Dean Thomas in the corner just yelling at her, just forward, move forward, just go forward. Don't stop, just go forward. And she did a lot of that throughout the fight, obviously off and on. The woman's like only human. But she put a lot of combinations together, a lot of forward movement, and she had Gillian Robinson backing up. The takedowns weren't working out very well for Gillian Robinson, like I feel like they normally do and normally have been at this lower weight class. And Ricci put it on her, man. And it was a great performance from Ricci because Gillian Robinson has looked great at this weight class. And she made her look like she was right back up at 125 again.
Mark?
Yeah, the speed gap was wider than I imagined it would be, and it was evident in the first minute of that fight. I knew Ricci would be the better striker, but she was so much faster that it was almost shutting down anything Robertson wanted to do. Like, she was almost resorting to one shot because she didn't have time to set up any combos or set up any takedowns because Ricci was so in and out that she was like, I got to land one big one when she's in because then she's gone again. So that went on for like 10 minutes before Robertson finally adjusted by round 3. She accepted that she had to make it ugly, I think, finally. If she had done that sooner, maybe the fight changes a bit because she did have more success in round 3, but she didn't. And Ricci did a fantastic job dictating it. She was in control. She used her speed. Her wrestling looked really good, both offensively and defensively. And I think she got maybe a little bit of a gift in that Gillian, I think, respected her power more than she should have. I think there should have been a lot more of Gillian just walking through things because Tabatha Ricci is not exactly someone who's going to knock you out. But it was well done by Tabatha. Big win for her.
Yeah, man. Let's only talk about the winner for this fight, Tabatha Ricci. Omar.
For the first time.
Give us the name that you think should be matched up with Ricci next.
I mean, it was a good win. It was a good win. I thought it was something that for me, I thought she won 3 rounds to 0. I think we did have, right? But there were a couple of judges that had him 2-1, right?
I think there was maybe one judge that gave Gillian the third. I can't remember. Could have been 2.
Okay.
But yeah, third was like competitive.
I mean, I thought they all had their moments for sure, but I thought they were very clear rounds for Ricci, in my opinion. But I think what would be really interesting at this point would be somebody who kind of matches her volume, matches her speed. I think we've seen now her against a relative wrestler in Gillian Robertson, but I kind of want to see her against a fun striker, somebody that could give her, potentially some highlight reel stuff or whatever, however you want to call that. So I would go either towards the Angela Hill direction or even a Michelle Waterson direction.
Mark?
Literally,
was that what you had?
Exact 2 names that I was going to say.
Ooh.
I think it's time for that next level veteran test for Tabatha Ricci, and the names that satisfy that are Angela Hill or Michelle Waterson.
There you go, man. Like it when great minds think alike. Okay, let us now.
This is
throw
not
the rest of
pre-planned,
these fights.
folks.
That's right, from UFC Fight
This is the
Night.
genuine heart.
Topuria versus Emmett into our lightning round. So if you don't know, joining us for the first time, our lightning round is where I challenge Mark and Omar to give me their quickest takes on the outcomes of these fights. Here we go. Starting things off in the heavyweight division, back up to the main card. Austin Lane and Justin Tabatha's fight ended in a no contest due to an accidental eye poke. Mark, go first.
I was interested to see some of Austin Lane, man. He looked really fast, for someone as big as he was. But unfortunately, we get a near immediate eye poke. Justin Tabatha's eye is bleeding. He can't see anything out of it, and they didn't have a choice but to wave that thing off. Thankfully, he's updated since, and his eye's actually all right.
Omar.
That's good. I didn't actually see the update about his eye, but that's good because the eye poke was really, really bad. But you're right. Austin Lane looked great. He had a lot of great movement. The best word I could really describe the few seconds of performance we got from him was he was on, 100% on. And he looked interesting. So, hopefully they got to run that one back, right? You can't just let that one end like that. But I guess it depends on the timeline for Justin Tabatha and what that looks like. But either way, I'm interested to see both guys again.
I read someone saying that while Justin Tabatha's eye recovers, they should put Austin Lane back in there against Junior Tabatha to try to avenge the eye poke.
That's funny. Okay.
Get the virtually identical going.
How are they related? Is somebody's son or brother?
They're brothers. No, they're brothers.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
One fat brother and one muscular brother.
There you go. Okay. That's not confusing at all. In the featherweight division, tremendous stuff. David Onama gets the win by knockout over Gabriel Santos by, like I said, by knockout in the second round, 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Mark, start us off.
First off, Gabriel Santos is good, man. That's not your typical 0-2 UFC fighter. He's had some really good moments now against both Lerone Murphy and David Onama, so here's hoping he gets a matchup he can win in his next fight because I do feel like he deserves to be in the UFC. But Onama battled through it, man. He was in a lot of tough spots. He was hurt a couple times early, couple armbar positions, some time on his back. Santos was on his back. I mean, it was a lot, but he never wavered. He worked through all of it, and then he found those little step-in elbows late in that fight, which is what opened it up, and then the right uppercut came as flush as can be. Lands another right as Santos is falling, which was beautiful. And, monster knockout.
Omar.
Santos has got a chin, man, because Onama was throwing fire for a good majority of that fight. And he was landing clean. If you go back and you watch that fight, Santos' head was moving in all sorts of direction, but he was eating it. And I think it just got to a point where the damage had just accumulated a little bit too much by the time we got to the second round. And, that uppercut was devastating. I don't even think Santos saw it. And the ones you don't see are the ones that hurt the most. And Onama had some really good finishing instincts in that moment, and that's all she wrote.
Okay. Here we go. Mateos Rebecki, round 2 TKO over Loik Radzhabov. Marco first.
So here's some shit. His name looks like it should be Rebecki. When he debuted, it was Rabeshki.
Oh,
now
excuse me.
it was Rombeshki. R-O-M. Rombeshki. So who freaking knew that is Rombeshki? But that's what they were saying. So anyway, he looked great. He really did some damage to Radzhabov's legs early, and I feel like commentary didn't even really notice it, to be honest. But he was putting in damage on Loik's legs. And the reason he had so much success closing range as that round went on is because Radzhabov was kind of like hopping backwards, and he couldn't circle away anymore because of the legs. And again, I feel like commentary didn't really pick up on that until round 2, but that damage accumulated quick from those leg kicks. Rombeshki's a beast. But then the takedown came. When they got back up, he dropped him again with a leg kick, got on top again, and then he just broke him right away in round 2. Loik battled, to his credit. He lasted longer than it seemed like he was going to last in that round 2 because it was an onslaught. But he couldn't move, and it was a matter of time, and Rombeshki got him out of there. So big win for him over a guy who's pretty established. He's been around in PFL. That's a quality W.
Omar.
Yeah, man. He was a stalker in that fight. Rombeshki.
Yeah,
Did I say that right?
yeah.
Rombeshki looked good, man. The leg kicks were great. The work against the cage I thought was really the most impressive thing, right? Because I thought they let it go on a little bit longer than I would have liked, especially considering the performance of him relying on the cage to stand up and trying to get something off. It wasn't. I don't know. It just didn't seem like the proper way to defend yourself, and he was getting lit up in those moments as well. I don't think we needed to wait as long as we did to get it out of there. I will say I'm glad we just waited at least until there was one knockdown, right? We didn't get crazy. We didn't let Razabov, Loik. We didn't get Loik. Wait for Loik to get completely destroyed once that knockdown happened. So at least there was that. But what an amazing performance from Rombeshki.
Okay. Joshua Van, split decision over Zalga Zumagulov. Omar, go first.
So I would have to imagine Zumagulov is like cut, right? Because this is another loss on his record. He looks, you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of Clay Guida. Like there are shades of Clay Guida all over this man. And like early Clay Guida, where like he's just bouncing around all over the goddamn place and not really being very accurate and being very technical with what he's doing and just throwing shit out there, hoping it lands. And you got hooks that are thrown with straight arms, hoping that they land. It was weird, man. He's a weird dude, and he was getting pieced up, especially those last two rounds. Van found his distance, found the power, was hitting him in between combinations, in between shots, in the pocket. I mean, he put on a real show as far as I was concerned for the last two rounds. And honestly, kind of made, in my opinion, Zumagulov did not look like he deserved to belong in there or deserved to be in there. This was Van's debut as well, so I thought it was a hell of a way to bring your A game on your first outing, and he beat the shit out of Zumagulov.
Mark.
Yeah, Zumagulov grew all the hair. I think he hoped it may give him an extra nudge when it came to winning these split decisions, but unfortunately for him, it did not. He just looked kind of odd. But it was the right call. He's had some tough split decisions in the UFC, but this one wasn't. Van came back to win rounds 2 and 3 of that fight. He's a really dangerous striker. Great feints, great variety. He had Zumagulov hurt real bad in round 2. I thought it was going to end in there for a second. And his takedown D was on point, too. So, tough spot for Zumagulov. He couldn't do much, and it was a nice debut win for Joshua Van.
Okay. Jose Mariscal, UD over Trevor Peek. Mark, take it.
Dude, Trevor Peek came out and fought the exact same way he did in his debut. That same crazy brawling style. But Chepe Mariscal was not the guy. He ate damage. He was 0% intimidated by that fight style. He held his ground. His punches were tighter, which was the key for a lot of that fight. He had wrestling and grappling to lean on to mix it up when he needed to. And he beat the shit out of Trevor Peek by the end of that fight. Like, he had Trevor Peek questioning his existence. There were times Trevor Peek, stepped back and he was like, what the fuck do I do? Because it just was not going his way. So a really nice debut for Chepe Mariscal, who I'm guessing may even be down at featherweight for his next fight. And this was a nice lightweight win.
Omar.
Yeah, dude. I really love this performance. They definitely came to bang. I don't care for Peek's hammer fists on the feet. Maybe I'm in the minority. They look ridiculous. He looks like somebody, like a bum fighting on the street when he does that shit. It drives me crazy. Apart from that, I thought it was a great performance from what is that kid's name? Pesci?
Chepe.
Chepe.
Or his real name is Jose, I believe.
Yeah, that's not as fun though. Chepe.
No. Yeah.
I like Chepe.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great performance from him. And just a little backstory, I heard a little tidbit about him that last year, sounds like his mother passed away. I believe either close to or during one of his fights or something like that. But everybody in his family seemed like they were telling him, it might be time to be done with the fighting and, this, that, and the other. And he told everybody that my mom told me that I need to keep going, that I shouldn't have come this far if I wasn't going to keep going. And when she passed away, his resolve was even more than it was before. So take that for what you will. I love stories like that, especially, those kind of stories kind of hit the heart, obviously. So I want good things for him. I hope he continues to excel, because the fact of the matter is he looked great in that performance.
Yeah, man. Okay, Jack Jenkins.
Ooh. Fight announcement. Did you
Oh.
guys see this? A fight announcement within the last hour. Kelvin Gastelum down to welterweight, fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Oh,
Whoa.
fucking Christ.
Talk about a
Wow.
fucking welcome back to welterweight. My goodness.
And also, what a test for Rachmanov.
Let's be fair, though. Kelvin Gastelum got to fucking beat the scale before he beats Rachmanov. So
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
one fight at a time,
Got to go 2-0 that night.
hopefully.
Yeah,
All right,
Kelvin
sorry,
at
go
170. Can he do it? Of course he
About time,
can do
man.
it. But can he do it? Yeah, about time. About time. Okay, let's finish up this lightning round. Here we go. Jack Jenkins split decision over Jamal Emmers. Omar, take it.
So I'm curious to see what Mark's take on this is, because this kind of felt robbery to me. We don't scream robbery on this show very often. The masses may, but we are generally like, not a robbery, close fight, not a robbery. This was fucked up. This was a whole heist. Like, this was like a blatant win for Emmers, I thought, and I think one judge didn't give Emmers any round at all, which was odd. I have to now look back at these scorecards real quick, but this was
Right now, I'm curious.
a terrible goddamn decision on all fronts.
30
Oh no, there was
Emmers
one judge.
by one
There's
judge.
one judge that gave Emmers every round, which I thought was the right call, actually. Very,
can see-
very odd.
10 out of 10 experts scored the fight for Emmers. And 46, 52, 82% of the public scored it for Emmers.
But it should be noted that it's not just that they scored it for Emmers, right? They scored it 30-27. We're not even on the same page that this was a close fight, that this might have been 29-28, could have swung either way. No, Emmers won that fight handedly, as far as I was concerned. And I'm not really sure where the disconnect was. I'm almost at the point now where the judges need to be recorded on camera, because they're not watching these fights. There's no way they're watching these fights from beginning to end. There's no way that they're not taking out their phone and like checking something. Oh, fucking babysitter or something, and somebody gets knocked down. Oh, I don't know what happened. Like, something is going on, because they're fucking things up. Emmers won that fight, and now he doesn't get a win bonus. He doesn't get to move up. He doesn't get all the things that should have come with this win. And it's just another goddamn day with bad judging.
I'm tired of talking about the judges in MMA, man. I mean, I know that boxing has had its moments with judging, but I feel like it's more scandalous in boxing, where it's like people know that like judges are compromised at boxing. I feel like judging in MMA is more just like ineptitude. Am I wrong? What do you guys think?
Yeah.
See, it's funny, though, because usually I feel like, not usually, a lot of times when you see a weird decision, I actually just realized I didn't even talk about this fight yet, but when you see a weird decision in MMA, it's the guy scoring with kicks that gets screwed, because they credit, strikes to the face a lot more than they're crediting calf kicks. In this one, they actually went the other way. They gave it to the guy who was doing all the damage to the legs and didn't give it to the guy who was landing clean punches. So I feel like you never see that in MMA, so that surprised me. But Yeah, I'm on the same page. I don't think the right man got the nod here. I did think Jenkins edged round one, even though it was also close. I think the leg kicks just nudged him ahead. There was a lot of solid leg kicks, but yeah, round two, I thought Emmers responded. He was still eating some kicks, of course. Jenkins is nasty leg kicker, but he handled the range much better. He landed clean with his boxing a bunch, and then he won round three. So yeah, I do think he got robbed a bit here.
Okay, last one, guys.
Yeah.
Cedricus Dumas, UD over Cody Brundage. Mark, starts off.
Apparently, Cody Brundage has just hit a point in his career where he can't stop jumping guillotines because it cost him his last fight, and then he immediately comes in and does it again, and it cost him round one right away. It gave Dumas confidence. Is it Dumas? Cedric? Yeah, Dumas, right? He says. Gave him confidence, let him get on top, and Brundage just couldn't really recover from the bad start. And Cedricus showed some fantastic defensive wrestling, if we're being honest, and offensive wrestling for that matter. Like huge improvements from his debut because it did not look like those were in the bag, those skills in his debut. And he looked pretty solid here, so he must have put in some work. So good for him, and he gets his first UFC W.
Omar, take us home.
Yeah, I thought he looked good. The performance overall, the fight overall, I thought wasn't anything to scream home about. But I do think that Dumas definitely showed improvements. Brundage is generally a ground guy, right? Like he's a wrestler. Yeah, Jesus Christ, he wouldn't really be able to tell too much. Spent a lot of time on the ground, a lot of time not being able to defend transitions that Dumas was doing on top. Very, very odd how uncomfortable Brundage looked on the ground in that fight. So it was a good win from Dumas, and I'm sure he'll be back again.
Okay, that does it for this week's Lightning Round.